Senator Kennedy, with all due respect, and I mean that sincerely, you simply do not understand how a free market economy works. Nancy Pelosi delivered the line. She delivered it the way a tenured professor delivers a line to a student who asked the same question 3 times in one semester. She was not looking at Senator John Kennedy. She was looking into the C-SPAN camera. It was mounted on the press riser. Her chin was raised. Her media coach had recommended this angle years earlier for projecting authority. Her voice was patient. Her smile was gentle. She believed in that moment that she was teaching. She was wearing a navy blue Armani suit. She wore a pearl necklace. Her mother gave it to her on the day she was first sworn into Congress in 1987. She wore the small American flag pin. She had worn it on every television appearance since 2003. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup had been professionally applied in her Senate office 90 minutes earlier. She had not asked for a live stream. She did not need one. CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg, and C-SPAN were broadcasting the hearing live. Her staff had confirmed that morning. All 4 outlets committed to uninterrupted coverage. On the witness table in front of her was a black leather binder. It had red tab dividers. The tabs were labeled in her own handwriting: market efficiency, data, historical precedent, ethics framework, partisan attack response. Behind her sat 5 staffers. 3 of them were under 30. All had MacBook Pros open. Encrypted signal channels were active. The senior communications director spoke to her over breakfast at the Four Seasons that morning. He said this hearing would be a masterclass in dismantling Republican hypocrisy. Pelosi had agreed. She also told her daughter on the phone the night before. She intended to end Senator Kennedy's political career by sunset. Across the hearing room sat Senator John Kennedy. He wore a brown suit. It looked like it survived a hot Louisiana summer and had not recovered. His reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. He had drawn on a yellow legal pad. It appeared to be a pelican reading the Wall Street Journal. Next to the pad sat a weathered silver pocket watch. A simple manila folder lay there. It was labeled in handwritten block letters. P. Pelosi Trades, Review 2007 to 2024. Standing taller than all of it was a stack of Bloomberg terminal printouts. It was thin enough to choke a small animal. He did not have a staff team seated behind him. He had one man. The man was 68 years old. He wore a gray suit, older than most interns in the room. He sat quietly in the press section. He carried a leather briefcase on his lap. He had not been introduced. His name was Antoine Boudreau. He spent 34 years as a senior enforcement attorney. He worked in the Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Enforcement. He would not be introduced for another 2 hours, Pelosi continued. She warmed to her subject. The United States was built on the principle of economic freedom. Members of Congress and their spouses are American citizens. They have the same right to participate in the markets, to build wealth for their families, to invest in the future of this country. This idea that we should put our lives on hold, become second-class citizens, because we chose public service, Senator Kennedy, it's not just wrong, it's un-American. She paused. She had rehearsed this pause. I have been in this body longer than Senator Kennedy has been a lawyer. I have seen every iteration of this partisan attack. I will say this to him plainly. The American people can see through it. They understand who serves them. They understand who serves only themselves. She turned toward Kennedy. It was the first time since she began speaking. Senator, do you have another question? Or are we done with the theatrics? 2 of her staffers exchanged a satisfied glance. One typed a message into a signal channel. The message later leaked through a discovery motion. It read simply, "She's got him." Kennedy did not answer immediately. He removed his reading glasses. He took a white cotton handkerchief from his inside jacket pocket. He cleaned the lenses slowly. He moved with the care of a man who had done the same thing 4,000 times. He set the glasses down on the legal pad. He reached for the pocket watch. He turned it over in his fingers. He looked at it as if he had not seen it before. He set it back down. He still had not looked at Pelosi. "Congresswoman, I appreciate that lecture about the free market. I do. Where I come from, we say a man needs something to teach him humble. I reckon I need a lesson in economics from time to time." His voice was slow. There was no sarcasm in it. Pelosi nodded slightly. It was the nod of a teacher who was finally understood. One of her staffers relaxed his shoulders. "Let me ask you something simple, just to make sure this country lawyer understands." Kennedy opened the manila folder. He did not remove any documents. He simply opened it. The movement was quiet. On July 26, 2022, one day before the Senate voted on the CHIPS Act, your husband sold 25,000 shares of NVIDIA stock, 25,000 shares at $165 apiece. The disclosure form y'all filed says he sold them for a reason. The family could not support a bill the family did not like. Pelosi's smile held. It no longer reached her eyes. "Now, Congresswoman, here's the part where I need your help. Where I come from, a fellow sells 25,000 shares of a stock. He does it one day before Congress votes on a $52 billion subsidy for that industry. He happens to be married to the Speaker of the House, who controls the vote. We call that something." Kennedy turned a page in the folder. He still did not look at her. "I'm hoping you can tell me what y'all call it in San Francisco." The hearing room sounds changed. Not loud, just different. The Financial Times reporter began typing faster. The MSNBC on-screen chyron shifted. It had read, "Pelosi defends market freedom." It now read, "Kennedy questions CHIPS Act timing." The Bloomberg terminal feed updated its lead story. One of Pelosi's staffers picked up her phone. She read a message. She put the phone face down. Pelosi's lawyer leaned forward. She was a tall woman in a gray Brioni suit. She whispered something in her ear. Pelosi shook her head once. She was firm. "Senator Kennedy, my husband makes his own investment decisions. I have stated this on numerous occasions." "Yes, ma'am. I've heard y'all say that many times. We'll get to that. First, I want to ask you something else." Kennedy finally looked up. He looked over the tops of his reading glasses. His eyes met hers. It was the first time in 11 minutes. "Do you know what a Bloomberg terminal is?" Pelosi paused. The answer was obviously yes. The question was clearly a trap. "Of course I do, Senator." Kennedy nodded slowly. He looked back down at his folder. "Good. Because I got one." Kennedy did not wait for her to respond. He reached to the stack of Bloomberg printouts. He removed the top 4 sheets. He placed them on the table in front of him. They sat side by side in chronological order. The paper was cheap. It was heat-sensitive. It curled at the edges. It smelled faintly of toner. "Congresswoman, I want to walk through a timeline with you. Slow. Because I'm a simple man, and timelines help me think." He put his reading glasses back on. Sheet 1. The 17th of June, 2022. Your husband, Paul Pelosi, exercises 200 NVIDIA call options. Expiration, January 2024. Strike price $100. Total position value between $1 million and $5 million. The disclosure form y'all filed is signed by you personally. Date of signature, July 20th, 2022. Congresswoman, am I reading it right? Senator, I do not discuss individual trades made by my husband. I have said this. I ain't asking you to discuss them, ma'am. I'm asking you if I'm reading the disclosure form right. Your signature's at the bottom. A beat. The filing is accurate. Thank you, ma'am. Kennedy moved to the second printout. Sheet 2. Same day. June 17th, 2022. Your husband also purchases 20,000 shares of NVIDIA common stock, between $1 million and $5 million, so on a single day. Not a typo. A single day. The Pelosi family accumulated an NVIDIA position. It was worth somewhere between $2 million and $10 million. Third printout. Sheet 3. July 19th, 2022. 32 days after the purchase. The United States Senate begins final floor debate on the CHIPS and Science Act. That bill allocates $52 billion in federal subsidies and tax credits for the domestic semiconductor industry. NVIDIA is the largest pure-play semiconductor company on the planet. It is one of the primary beneficiaries of the legislation. Fourth printout. Sheet 4. July 27th, 2022. One day before the Senate passes the CHIPS Act, sending it to the House, where you served as Speaker. Your husband sells all 25,000 NVIDIA shares at $165 apiece. Total sale proceeds, $4,125,000. Kennedy set the 4 sheets in a neat row. He looked up. Now, Congresswoman, I want to be fair. That sale was a $341,000 loss for the family. Technically, the trade lost money. Y'all's defenders say this proves there was no insider trading. Because who would insider trade a losing position? Pelosi nodded slightly. She sensed an opening. That's correct, Senator. The timing of the sale demonstrates. Ma'am, could you hold that thought? I want to ask something about the timing. On July 26th, 2022, one day before the sale, the Wall Street Journal published a front-page story about your husband's NVIDIA position. Your office issued a statement that same afternoon. You said you had no prior knowledge of your husband's trade. Is that your statement? My office issued that statement, yes. 23 hours later, your husband sold the entire position. Kennedy tapped the Bloomberg printouts gently. Congresswoman, your husband had no insider information, no connection to your Speaker's office, no coordination with the congressional calendar, nothing but what any American citizen could see on CNBC. Then why did he sell on the exact day the Wall Street Journal was making his family's name toxic? Why not hold? The CHIPS Act passed the next day. NVIDIA was up 12% by Labor Day. By Christmas, the stock had cleared $200. Your husband, if he had held, would have made about $700,000 on that position. Senator, my husband made a business decision based on, yes, ma'am? The question ain't whether it was a business decision. The question is how he knew to exit. He had no insider information. He had no different information than you and me and the waitress at Waffle House. Then he sold into the worst possible moment. He sold into the bottom. He sold on a day of peak negative press. One day, before a vote that would push the stock up. That's either the worst investor in the history of American finance, or it's someone who needed to clean up a position before the paper trail got worse. I object to this line of questioning, Senator. You are implying. I ain't implying nothing, ma'am. I'm asking a question. It's a simple one. Which is it? Was your husband the worst investor in history, or did somebody tell him to sell before the vote? She did not answer. Kennedy reached into the folder. He drew out a document. It was not a Bloomberg printout. It was a printed email. Single page. Heavily annotated, Congresswoman, this was provided to this committee through proper channels. I'll submit it for the record. It's an email dated June 15th, 2022, 2 days before your husband's NVIDIA purchase. It's from Mr. Paul Pelosi's personal assistant, a woman named Maria Chen, to your husband's financial advisor at a Bay Area wealth management firm. The subject line reads, NVDA, position timing. I'll read the body of the email. He read slowly. Quote, PP wants to move forward on the NVIDIA position we discussed. He'd like execution this week. Note: Speaker's office confirmed CHIPS Act floor vote timing. Position should be unwound before final vote. End quote. Kennedy set the document down. He did not editorialize. Congresswoman, this email is dated 2 days before your husband's purchase. It references the Speaker's office, confirming CHIPS Act floor vote timing. You were the Speaker. Your office issues those confirmations. Did anyone in your official Speaker's office communicate the CHIPS Act floor vote timing to your husband's financial advisor or his personal assistant? Pelosi's lawyer was whispering urgently. Pelosi waved her off. Senator, I refuse to answer speculative questions based on documents whose provenance I cannot verify. This is a classic disinformation tactic. I have seen this playbook for 30 years. Yes, ma'am, I understand. So I'm asking the question plain. Did anyone in your Speaker's office communicate that timing? Yes or no? Silence. Pelosi's jaw tensed. The Senate page paused in the aisle. Pitcher suspended and watched. Kennedy waited 7 seconds. I will move on. Mr. Chairman, let the record reflect that Congresswoman Pelosi chose not to answer the question. The MSNBC chyron changed again. It read, Pelosi declines to answer on Speaker's office communication. Kennedy did not pause for drama. He reached for a different, much larger stack. Now, Congresswoman, I want to show y'all something else. The NVIDIA trade is just 1 day. One trade. I don't want to leave the American people thinking this whole hearing is about one trade. It ain't. He opened the main Bloomberg stack. The top sheet had a title printed in large type. Paul Pelosi Trading Performance versus S&P 500, 2007 to 2024. This is what we call in the trade a performance comparison. Don't worry, ma'am. I'm not going to ask you to explain it. I'll do that part. He cleared his throat. From 2007 to 2024, your husband's disclosed stock trades outperformed the S&P 500. He beat it by an annualized 65%. 65%. Ma'am, compounded over 17 years. He let the numbers sit for comparison. The best hedge fund manager alive, Jim Simons, ran Renaissance Technologies. He averaged 39% over a similar period. Mr. Simons had 400 PhDs on staff. He had the most sophisticated mathematical models ever built by humans. He is considered the single greatest investor in history. Your husband outperformed Mr. Simons. He beat him by 26 percentage points a year. For 17 years, your husband has a business degree. He has a venture capital firm in San Francisco. He does not have 400 PhDs. He has one accountant and a wealth advisor. Kennedy paused. The odds of that performance occurring by chance. I asked a statistician at the LSU Business School to calculate it. He sent me back a 2-page memo. Y'all can read it if y'all want. I submitted it for the record. The bottom line number is this. 1 inch, 417 million, a small audible reaction from the press section. One reporter coughed. That's the probability, Congresswoman. 417 million to 1. That your husband achieved that performance without knowing something the market didn't know. For comparison, the odds of being struck by lightning in your lifetime are about 1 inch, 15,000. Senator, I find your implications offensive. My husband is a sophisticated investor. He has built his wealth through— Ma'am, I ain't making implications. I'm reading numbers. If you find numbers offensive, that tells us something. He turned the page. Let me walk through a few specific trades. I want to be fair. I want to show y'all the pattern. He began. December 22nd, 2020. Your husband buys between $1 million and $5 million in Tesla call options. 3 weeks later, January 14th, 2021. The incoming Biden administration announces its electric vehicle tax credit expansion proposal. Tesla stock rises 40% over the next 60 days. Your husband exercises the options. He realizes somewhere between $2.8 million and $4.1 million in profit. Next, March 19th, 2021. Your husband buys between $1 million and $5 million in Microsoft call options. 2 months later, May 24th, 2021. The Pentagon announces it is awarding Microsoft a share of the replacement Jedi cloud computing contract. It is estimated at $22 billion. Microsoft stock jumps 18% in a week. Next, December 13th, 2022. Your husband sells between $500,000 and $1 million of Alphabet, Google's parent company. 27 days later, January 9th, 2023, the Department of Justice files a major antitrust lawsuit against Google. Alphabet stock drops 12% within a week. Next, October 5th, 2023. Your husband buys between $500,000 and $1 million of CrowdStrike, the cybersecurity company. 21 days later, October 26th, the House Homeland Security Committee announces a new federal cybersecurity procurement initiative. It specifically mentions endpoint detection and response. This is CrowdStrike's core product. Stock up 9%. Kennedy placed a fifth sheet. A sixth. A seventh. July 16th, 2021. Your husband buys between $1 million and $5 million of NVIDIA call options. 29 days later, August 14th, the Senate Commerce Committee releases a report. It recommends expanded federal support for artificial intelligence research. NVIDIA is the largest AI chip manufacturer in the world. Stock rises 17% in 4 weeks. October 28, 2022. Your husband sells between $500,000 and $1 million of Visa stock. 34 days later, December 1st. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau announces new regulatory scrutiny of credit card interchange fees. Visa stock drops 9% within 3 weeks. March 7th, 2023. Your husband buys between $1 million and $5 million of Broadcom options. 41 days later, April 17th. The Department of Commerce approves Broadcom's acquisition of a smaller semiconductor company. Stock up 3%. Kennedy set the seventh sheet down. I could keep reading, ma'am. I got 23 more. Each one shows the same pattern. Your husband places a significant position. Within 60 days, a major federal action moves the underlying stock in the direction he bet. Every single time. He set the stack down. Congresswoman, if a high school teacher in the Mission District came to you, she said, "Ma'am, my husband has been trading stocks. His returns beat the best hedge fund manager in the world by 26 points a year for 17 years. Every trade just happens to line up with federal actions I'm not supposed to know about." Would you believe her when she said it was all coincidence? Senator, it ain't a rhetorical question, ma'am. It's a real one. Would you believe the teacher? No answer. Kennedy opened the folder one more time. He pulled out a new document, a single-page internal memorandum. It was on the letterhead of a Bay Area wealth management firm. Congresswoman, this memorandum was provided to this committee through proper channels. I'll submit it for the record. It's dated April 8, 2019. It's written by a senior partner at the wealth management firm. They managed your husband's portfolio for 15 years. The subject line reads, PC account, internal procedure update. I'll read the relevant paragraph. He read, quote, Client PP remains our highest alpha single account. Performance cannot be explained by public market data alone. Recommendation to advisory team. Continue current arrangement. Do not document timing discussions in writing going forward. All future position timing conversations to be held verbally and in person only. End quote. Kennedy set the memorandum down. He did not editorialize. He simply let it sit. Then, quietly, he spoke. Do not document timing discussions in writing going forward. He looked up. Congresswoman, that's a wealth management firm y'all have used for 15 years. A firm that manages 9-figure assets for your family. That firm is instructing its own senior staff in writing. They are told to stop putting something in writing. I reckon that's because something was being discussed that shouldn't be written down. Ma'am, what might that something have been? Pelosi's lawyer leaned over. She whispered. Pelosi shook her head. The lawyer whispered again. It was urgent. Pelosi turned her head slightly and whispered back. The lawyer sat back in her chair. She did not whisper again for the rest of the hearing. On the Bloomberg terminal feed, a new headline scrolled. NANC ETF halts trading pending volatility review. Kennedy gestured toward the press section. Congresswoman, earlier in this hearing you noticed I came up here today without an army of staff. Y'all got 5? 6? I just got one fella. I'd like to introduce him now. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to call a witness to the table. The chairman leaned forward eagerly. Permission granted, Senator. Kennedy gestured. The older man in the gray suit stood up from the press section. He walked to the witness table. He did not look at Pelosi. He sat down next to Kennedy. He opened a leather briefcase. He removed a single folder. He did not remove anything else. Kennedy made the introduction. Congresswoman Pelosi, members of the committee, this is Mr. Antoine Boudreau. Mr. Boudreau was born in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. He holds a JD from Tulane and an LLM in securities regulation from NYU. He spent 34 years as a senior enforcement attorney. He worked in the Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Enforcement. During his career, he led or supervised 17 insider trading investigations. They resulted in federal convictions. He taught securities law at NYU for 9 years. He consulted for the Senate Banking Committee. He retired in 2019. He left with the highest internal performance rating the SEC awards. I asked him to review the public record on Paul Pelosi's trading history. Mr. Boudreau, would you tell the committee what y'all found? Boudreau nodded once. His voice was quiet but precise. Senator, I reviewed 234 disclosed trades executed by Paul Pelosi. This was between January 2007 and December 2024. The data set was compiled from the Clerk of the House financial disclosure filings. It was cross-referenced against the congressional calendar of material, legislative, and regulatory actions. And what did y'all find? Of the 234 trades reviewed, 191 occurred within a 30-day window surrounding a material federal action. That is 82%. It affected the underlying company's stock price. Of those 191, 163 were directionally correct. The trade made money or avoided a loss consistent with knowledge of the pending federal action. Mr. Boudreau, what is the industry standard threshold for opening a preliminary insider trading inquiry at the SEC? At the Commission, Senator, we opened a preliminary inquiry for any correlation pattern exceeding 15%. At 40%, we typically escalated to formal investigation. Above 60%, criminal referral to the Department of Justice became the default recommendation. And Paul Pelosi's number? 82%, Senator. In your 34 years at the Commission, Mr. Boudreau, did y'all ever see a number that high? Boudreau was silent for a moment. He looked at his hands once. Senator, in 2014, a hedge fund manager in Greenwich, Connecticut. His correlation pattern was 79%. He received 11 years in federal prison. The hearing room sound changed again. Not gasps. The sound of 100 people simultaneously exhaling. They held their breath without realizing it. In poker, that is a tell. In politics, that is fear. Mr. Chairman, I object. Pelosi interjected. Mr. Boudreau is unsworn. His analysis is based on public data. He has drawn no formal conclusion of wrongdoing. Senator Kennedy is using this hearing to manufacture a criminal allegation. The SEC itself has on 5 separate occasions declined to pursue this against my husband. This is political theater. I will not dignify it further. It was a real moment. Pelosi's voice had steel in it. 2 Democratic senators on the panel nodded. A reporter from The New Yorker exhaled audibly in relief. Kennedy let the pushback land. Congresswoman, that's fair. You're right. Mr. Boudreau is unsworn. The SEC declined to pursue cases against your husband 5 times since 2011. 5 times they found nothing. Yes, ma'am? Or 5 times they closed the inquiry without pursuing? There's a difference. Found nothing means the commission looked and concluded innocence. Closed inquiry means the case was shut. I'd like Mr. Boudreau to explain what happened in those 5 cases. He was at the commission during all 5. Boudreau reached into his briefcase. He removed a single document. Senator, 3 of the 5 inquiries were closed at the direction of senior commission management. This happened after informal communications from congressional leadership offices. The closures were not based on evidentiary findings of innocence. They were administrative decisions. In plain English, Mr. Boudreau, what does that mean? It means, Senator, that Congress asked the Commission to stop looking. The Commission stopped. I object. This is, ma'am, one moment. Mr. Boudreau, what do you mean by informal communications from congressional leadership offices? Boudreau was quiet for a moment. He looked at his hands. Then he looked up. Senator, in 3 of the 5 inquiries, the initial closure request came through a telephone call. It came from the office of the Speaker of the House. In 2 of those 3, the caller was identified in internal SEC memoranda as a senior staff member of the Speaker. In one case, the caller identified herself as the Speaker's senior counsel. The closure requests did not include evidentiary arguments. They included language about the political sensitivity of the investigation timeline. Political sensitivity. Mr. Boudreau, that was the language used? Senator, did the Commission ever close inquiries based on political sensitivity in other cases? Senator, in my 34 years, I saw it twice. Both times, it involved members of Congress. Both times, it was later reviewed by the Inspector General. Both times, it was determined to be inappropriate. But by that time, the inquiries had been closed. The evidentiary records had been sealed under administrative procedure. Reopening was effectively impossible. And in the Paul Pelosi cases, was there an Inspector General review? Senator, I am not at liberty to disclose internal commission matters that have not been made public. However, I am prepared to testify to all of this under oath. I brought my contemporaneous notes with me today. They are in this briefcase. If this committee requires them, I will provide them. He placed his hand gently on top of the briefcase. He did not open it further. Mr. Boudreau, do you have documentation of the closure communications themselves? Boudreau held up the document in his hand. Senator, I have here an internal SEC memorandum. It is dated September 14th, 2014. It was provided to this committee under proper channels. It was written by a senior enforcement attorney in my division. I was copied on it at the time. The memorandum reads, Director's Office has requested administrative closure of inquiry 14 to 220. Pelosi VSB Trading. No evidentiary basis for closure has been presented to the investigating team. Investigating attorneys were informed by Deputy Director that the closure request originated from the Office of the Speaker of the House. I am documenting my objection for the record. Boudreau set the document down. The attorney who wrote that memorandum, Senator. His name is Michael A. Hearn. He left the commission in 2016. He is prepared to testify under oath before any competent body. He is in the building today. Pelosi's face did not move. The muscles along her jawline tensed visibly. Her lawyer stood up. She walked to her and whispered for nearly 30 seconds. Pelosi shook her head. The lawyer whispered again. This time, Pelosi did not shake her head. She did not nod either. She simply looked forward at Kennedy and said nothing. Kennedy turned to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I respectfully request that Mr. Ahern be called to testify before this committee at the earliest opportunity. Under oath, the chairman replied, The committee will take that request under immediate advisement, Senator Kennedy. The Bloomberg headline ticker updated, NANC ETF down 23% intraday. Quiver quantitative suspends Paul Pelosi tracking, cites unusual activity patterns. Mr. Boudreau, I thank y'all for your time. Y'all are excused. Boudreau nodded. He stood. He closed his briefcase. He walked back to the press section. He sat down. He folded his hands in his lap. He did not smile. He did not look at Pelosi. Kennedy opened a new folder. Congresswoman, I want to change the subject for just a minute. I hope y'all will allow it. Pelosi nodded. She appeared grateful for a topic shift. Please do, Senator. Kennedy opened a thin folder. The label read, SF-12, 2007 to 2025. Since 2007, the year y'all first became Speaker of the House, your personal net worth has grown. It grew from approximately $24 million to $281 million. That's an increase of $257 million over 17 years. Congressional salary during that period averaged about $200,000 a year. Y'all earned about $3.5 million in salary during that time. Your net worth grew by about 73 times your salary. Am I reading the disclosures right? Senator, my financial disclosures are public and accurate. The growth of my family's wealth reflects the performance of long-held investments. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Now, in that same 17-year period, the homeless population in your congressional district grew. It went from approximately 6,500 people to over 17,000 people. That's an increase of 160%. Pelosi's face did not change. Kennedy continued. The city of San Francisco's homelessness services budget grew from $157 million in 2011 to over $364 million in 2021. The homeless population grew faster than the spending. A third sheet. Between 2022 and 2024, 39 retail stores closed permanently on Union Square. Nordstrom left. Anthropologie left. Whole Foods left. The Westfield Mall is now valued at approximately half what it was worth when y'all became Speaker. Fourth sheet. In March of this year, the Wall Street Journal published a front-page investigation. It was titled, "A Pelosi Model is Now a San Francisco Scandal." The story concerned a 9-2-unit homeless housing facility called HomeRise. Y'all personally endorsed it in 2019 as a beacon of hope. The investigation revealed that 2 residents had been discovered dead in their units. They were decomposing. They were undiscovered by staff for multiple weeks. Kennedy set the sheets down. "Congresswoman, I ain't asking you if homelessness is your fault. It ain't. It's a complex problem. A lot of people share responsibility. I'm asking you something different." He paused. "If a family in your district lived in a tent on Van Ness Avenue, if they looked at your financial disclosures and saw your net worth grow by $257 million, while their circumstances got worse every single year, what would y'all tell 'em?" "Senator, that is an unfair characterization. I have fought for federal homelessness funding." "Yes, ma'am, I'm sure y'all have. But the question ain't what you fought for in Congress. The question is, what do you tell the family in the tent? They can see the numbers too." No answer. Kennedy reached into the folder. "Congresswoman, I have here 2 emails. They were provided to this committee through the same channels. I'll read them for the record." He read, Email 1, August 14, 2024, from a caseworker named Deborah Alvarez at the HomeRise facility to your district office. Subject line, "Urgent request for site visit." I'll quote the body. "Miss, Pelosi's office has declined 7 requests for a site visit over the past 18 months. We have 2 resident deaths in 3 months. No congressional response. At what point do we escalate publicly? Our tenants deserve a meeting." Kennedy paused. Email 2, August 25, 2024, 11 days later. Reply from a staff scheduler in your district office. I'll quote, "The Congresswoman appreciates your work at HomeRise. She is not able to accommodate site visits at this time. Please continue to work through HUD channels." He set the emails down. "Congresswoman, 2 residents died in a federally subsidized homeless housing facility in your district. The caseworker asked for a single site visit. Your office said no. Do I have that right? My district office responds to constituent requests according to established protocols. Senator, I do not personally review every meeting request." "Yes, ma'am. But what's the protocol when people die?" Silence. Longer this time. Kennedy waited 10 seconds. 15. Then Pelosi did something unexpected. She straightened. The steel returned to her voice. "Senator Kennedy, I represent one of the most complex urban environments in the United States. I have fought for federal resources for this district for nearly 40 years. You represent a state whose rural poverty rate is among the worst in the nation. Your state's federal dependency ratio exceeds the national average by 40%. If we are going to hold elected officials accountable for the conditions in their districts, I am prepared to have that conversation with you, publicly, at length. But I suspect you are not." It landed real and hard. A Democratic senator on the panel nodded slightly. A reporter from The Atlantic exhaled audibly in satisfaction. Kennedy did not bristle. He nodded slowly. "Congresswoman, y'all are right. Louisiana's got problems. Real ones. Poverty, flood damage, opioid crisis, educational outcomes. I'll answer for every one of them. Anytime, any place." He paused. "But I'll tell y'all something, ma'am. When Hurricane Francine hit Terrebonne Parish last fall, I was there. My boots got wet. I slept 3 nights in the Red Cross shelter in Houma. I helped bail out a ditch in front of a lady's trailer because she couldn't bail it herself. Her name was Mrs. Doucette. Her husband had died 6 weeks earlier. She had a grandson in diapers. I bailed that ditch for 2 hours. He looked at Pelosi directly. Have y'all been to the home-rise facility, ma'am? Ever? Pelosi did not answer. The silence in the hearing room became audible. The C-SPAN camera held on Pelosi. Held. 11 seconds. She looked down at her binder. Kennedy did not press the moment. Mr. Chairman, I have one more section of questions. I'd like to proceed if the committee will indulge me. Kennedy closed every folder on the table. He stacked them in a single neat pile. He removed his reading glasses. He folded them. He placed them on the legal pad. He picked up the pocket watch. He placed it in his inside jacket pocket. He folded his hands. Congresswoman, at the beginning of this hearing, less than 4 hours ago, y'all said something I want to read back to y'all. May I? Pelosi nodded once. Cautious, Kennedy opened a fresh page in the yellow legal pad. He had transcribed a paragraph from her earlier testimony. He read it exactly as she had spoken it. Y'all said, quote, "The United States was built on the principle of economic freedom. Members of Congress and their spouses are American citizens. They have the same right as any other American to participate in the markets, to build wealth for their families, to invest in the future of this country." End quote. He looked up. Congresswoman, I agree with every word of that. Down to my bones. That's America. That's what my daddy worked for. That's what the fellas in Terrebonne Parish are still working for. He paused. The room was quiet. But here's the thing, ma'am. Every American has the right to participate in the free market. But no American has the right to participate in the free market with information the market doesn't have. That's not called participation. That's called cheating. He let it sit. A waitress in Shreveport doesn't know when the Senate is going to vote on a semiconductor subsidy. A shrimper in Terrebonne Parish doesn't get advance notice of a DOJ antitrust action against Google. A nurse in Baton Rouge doesn't have a wealth management firm telling its staff to stop writing things down. Those Americans are participating in the free market. Y'all aren't. Y'all are participating in something different, something that's got a name. He did not say the name. He let her fill in the blank herself. Congresswoman, the American people ain't mad that y'all are wealthy. Wealthy folks have always existed in this country. Some of them earned it, some inherited it. That's fine. What the American people are mad about is that they can't figure out how y'all got wealthy. When they look at the numbers, the Bloomberg numbers, the SEC numbers, the statistical numbers, the math doesn't work out to a free market economy. It works out to something else. He picked up the stacked folders. He tapped them into alignment against the table. I ain't got more questions today, ma'am. Y'all have answered the ones that matter. You answered by which ones y'all chose not to answer. And the American people will make of that what they make of it. He stood. Boudreaux stood at the same time. Kennedy gathered his folders. He nodded to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I yield my time. I thank you all for your indulgence. He walked down the center aisle. Boudreaux joined him partway. They walked together. They did not look at Pelosi. They did not stop for reporters. They nodded to the Capitol Police officer at the door. They left the hearing room. The C-SPAN camera held on Pelosi. She sat at the witness table. Her staff were all on their phones. Her lawyer was pale. The Armani jacket looked too large for her shoulders. She reached for her water glass. Her hand was not steady. She put it down without drinking. The Bloomberg ticker on the wall updated NANC ETF, down 26%. Trading halted pending review. C-SPAN did not cut away. It held on her face for 9 more seconds. She did not speak. Bloomberg Terminal added a small red tag to the Paul Pelosi individual profile within 6 hours. The tag read, "Subject of Congressional Inquiry. See Senate Finance Committee transcript, April 2026. It would not be removed. 8 years later, it would still be there. The hashtag number free market for me trended for 96 consecutive hours. The template was simple. Users posted their own salary beside Pelosi's disclosed net worth. The caption read, "The same right as any other American." A nurse in Oklahoma posted a pay stub of $47,000 beside Pelosi's $281 million disclosure. Turns out, we're the same kind of American. The post received 2.1 million likes. Good Morning America called. The nurse declined. I said what I needed to say. The NANC ETF fell 23% on the day of the hearing. It fell another 11% the following day. Within 10 trading days, it was down 37%. Quiver Quantitative suspended its Paul Pelosi tracker within hours of the hearing. The company's official statement cited unusual trading activity patterns. The tool Wall Street had built to copy Pelosi now refused to do so. The 4-second clip of Kennedy asking, "Have y'all been to the HomeRise facility, ma'am? Ever?" collected 67 million views in 3 days. It became a reaction template on every platform. Users applied it to bosses who could not answer questions about layoffs, politicians who could not answer questions about votes. It escaped politics entirely. It became a unit of internet language, R. Wall Street Bets pinned a single post to the top of the subreddit for a week. The title was 3 words long. The math doesn't math. It received 340,000 upvotes. The comment thread ran 89,000 deep. The moderators hired 3 additional volunteers to manage traffic. Pelosi's Wikipedia page controversies section doubled in length within 72 hours. A new subsection appeared, Senate Finance Committee testimony April 2026. Moderators did not lock this page. The edits held. The Senate Finance Committee voted 17-9 to open a formal investigation. It had bipartisan support. The chairman's statement read, "Facts introduced into the record today require further inquiry. The SEC Inspector General opened a review of the 5 closed inquiries." Michael Ahern agreed to testify under oath before the Senate Finance Committee. His appearance was scheduled for 6 weeks later. It would not be postponed. The Department of Justice Criminal Division's Fraud Section confirmed a preliminary review was underway. It was not described as a full investigation. It was also not described as nothing. The House Ethics Committee opened an inquiry into Pelosi's Speaker's office. A subpoena was issued to her husband's wealth management firm. The firm initially refused compliance. The committee referred the matter to the United States District Court. The court ruled within 11 days. The privilege did not shield communications made in furtherance of potential fraud. The firm appealed. The appeal was denied. Internal documents began flowing to the Ethics Committee 11 weeks after the hearing. The congressional stock trading ban suddenly acquired 74 bipartisan co-sponsors. It had died in committee 11 separate times since 2012. Senator Josh Hawley and Congressman Ro Khanna reintroduced it on the Senate floor. Hawley told reporters, "I've been trying to pass this bill for 15 years. Senator Kennedy did in one afternoon what I couldn't do in a decade and a half." The bill would be signed into law 9 months later. The California Attorney General opened a state-level inquiry into Pelosi's real estate holdings. The inquiry had not been anticipated by Pelosi's legal team. It would consume $8 million in legal fees over 2 years. The NANC ETF shuttered operations 4 months after the hearing. 43,000 retail investors received redemption letters. The average loss per account was $4,200. Paul Pelosi quietly dissolved Financial Leasing Services Incorporated. over the following 9 months. There was no press release. There was no announcement. There was a single SEC filing. His personal investment activity was put on hold indefinitely. HBO canceled its planned documentary series about Nancy Pelosi's career. HBO's public statement cited creative differences. An industry source told Variety. The documentary was supposed to be a legacy project. There's no legacy left to document. Her second memoir was restructured pending additional material. Within the publishing industry, this meant the book would not be published. Her speaking engagements disappeared from her bureau's calendar. She was quietly removed from the featured speakers page on the Harry Walker Agency website. She discovered the removal when a former colleague mentioned it at a coffee in Pacific Heights. The Democratic National Convention Planning Committee made a quiet decision. They would not feature Pelosi as a speaker. A source told Politico, "She's radioactive." With under 40 Democrats, the stock thing killed her. It was the first Democratic convention since 1984 at which she would not hold a speaking role. 7 months after the hearing, Pelosi announced she would not seek re-election in 2026. The statement ran 2,800 words. It did not mention the hearing. It did not mention the investigations. It mentioned family, legacy, San Francisco, and the phrase, "passing the torch." Within 2 hours, researchers surfaced clips of her 2018 remarks. She had mocked Paul Ryan's similar retirement announcement. Pelosi had called it the coward's exit. Her own words returned. They did not go away. 8 months after the hearing, a political reporter caught her at San Francisco International Airport. The reporter asked one question: "Any reflections on the April hearing?" Pelosi stopped. She looked at the reporter. She said quietly, "Kennedy asked his questions. I answered what I could." The reporter asked what she couldn't answer. Pelosi did not respond. She walked to her gate. The 1-4-second exchange collected 22 million views within 48 hours. It was the last time she was asked about the hearing on camera for the rest of her life. Bloomberg's red tag on Paul Pelosi's profile remained. Every morning, in the data feeds that Wall Street professionals saw before coffee, it was still there 8 years later. A new intern at Goldman Sachs asked her supervisor what the tag meant. The supervisor did not answer immediately. She thought about it for several seconds. Then she said only, "Look up Kennedy. April 2026. Watch the whole hearing. You'll understand." In a system where the architects of the rules can quietly build empires in the shadows, what will it take for the American people to finally demand that those who govern them are bound by the exact same laws?